Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Irish Marketing Podcast, powered by IMJ and Tinpot Productions. I'm Daryl from Tinpot, and today we are going to be talking all things related to influencers and content creators. As you may know, the content creator economy and ecosystem is pretty much expanding exponentially. In 2023, Bloomberg estimated revenues would double over the next 5 years, reaching nearly $500 billion. If you're a marketer, a brand, an agency, this is an area that should be of interest. But like anything else, the more you understand, the more effective these relationships will be. So today we're looking at things from a couple of different angles. The recent Thinkhouse Youth Uncultured event was focused on influencers, and we have some more excerpts from that and some more of our conversation with Claire Hyland, who's head of their youth lab. I also caught up with Aoife Smith-Morgan, director at the Collaborations Agency, who recently wrote an interesting article about how to inspire and not instruct creators in order to tap into and connect with their community. Before we get to that though, let's hear from some of the people who are working at the creator coalface, so to speak. This was some of the audio played out at that recent Thinkhouse event.
Hello brand managers, James Kavanagh, content creator and former Thinkhouser here. When I think about a good brand collaboration, I think of a well-written, concise brief. Too many times I've received briefs that are 10 to 15 pages long, full of irrelevant information. And I think if you're making a piece of brand content, you can only really aim to get across 3 or 4 max key messages. So keep the brief well written and to the point.
When I am looking into a collaboration, the first thing is that I absolutely love the product. I love the brand that I'm going to be working with, because otherwise it just wouldn't make sense to work with somebody if you don't actually use their product or their service that they have. So that is number one for me. That's the number one priority. Secondly, although I love a brief from a brand, I love a brief, but a little brief, because I think that when it's your own social channels, you kind of know what the vibe is and what your audience likes and what they enjoy watching.
When you work with a brand, what makes the collaboration feel right? I think it feels right when they've seen the style of videos that I do and the ad can slot into that style, so it's not too jarring. So usually when I work with a brand and they trust my judgment for the video, those have always been the ones that have done and performed really well, when they've just kind of let me do something similar to what's already on my grid.
You heard from James Kavanagh, Vogue Williams and Cassie Stokes there with their views on how to make creator-client relationships work as best as they can. Now, in episode 7 of the podcast, we spoke to Claire Hyland from Thinkhouse about youth culture. On today's pod, we're going to get her views on this burgeoning content economy. I started by asking her to give us some clarity or distinction between the terms creator and influencer.
I think it's very important actually as an industry that we do understand that distinction, and that the real power, I would say now, is more through the lens of creators and the creator economy. So typically, as you said, Daryl, influencer is essentially somebody who has mass reach. So it could be a celebrity and they're putting a message out and they're reaching potentially millions or hundreds of thousands of people. But actually the real impact comes through the power of community, and it is through these networks online. And the engagement rates and the connection are typically far higher for people who have smaller communities. So in Ireland, you could be talking about, somebody that maybe has followers or fans between 10,000 and 50,000. And that's what you want. You want the engagement. You want the real kind of connection and conversation, because somebody just blasting it out in terms of reach isn't really what's going to actually drive people's interest and attention. So I think we've shifted from this reach model to a model more around credibility. Like, is this person saying something of interest, and is it likely going to engage me? And then I engage back. And of course, the way the algorithm works, the more engagement you have, the greater the opportunity that that conversation or that piece of content will go further as well.
So it's a very niche, but very loyal, very credible, very engaged audience. The numbers might not be as big, but you get more engagement and more connection from that community because they are so connected.
And what we're seeing, and really this is maybe where the tide has flipped now in terms of just the maturity of the market, but young people really aware that they don't want these links, they don't want this feeling of being sold to, that it's so obvious. They actually want to almost discover something. So a lot of that discoverability really happens when you're working with creators who are developing storylines that are so relevant to their own life, but they just feel so authentic. And what we're also seeing is we're getting no's from creators around certain projects. So we might look at a short list and go, okay, I think that person might be relevant, and they'll come back, actually no, that doesn't work for me because A, B, C, D. And that's the type of space that you want to be in, because otherwise no one's winning, because people will ignore it if they think it's inauthentic. And then you want that engagement too, in terms of just driving further conversation and further amplification.
That was Claire Hyland from Thinkhouse. And I also spoke to Aoife Smith-Morgan from the Collaborations Agency, who have a wide roster of creative talent on their books. She recently wrote an article, which we'll link in the show notes, about the importance of getting your brief right. We'll hear that interview in a moment. First, though, and to maybe put things in context, let's enjoy a short clip from one of the Collaborations creators, Killian Sunderman.
Oh, you guys are lucky. I gotta say, this country, it's just so beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? Oh, what's that? That's one of those old fairy forts, I think. Oh, a fairy fort. Anyway, we keep moving. You don't believe in that stuff, do you? What, believe in the fairies? No. Yeah. No, that's a load of old people stuff. It's so stupid. Anyway, we keep moving. Hey, let's have a look. No. Wow, look at that. It's just a pile of old stones. You know what? I think I might take one. What? Bring it home with me, right? No, don't do that. I'm gonna do it. Don't stop. I love this back home. Don't do that. What? It's just, I wouldn't do that, okay? I wouldn't do that if I were you. It's just a stone. This time of year? What do you mean, this time of year? I just wouldn't. I wouldn't. I thought you said you didn't believe in any of that garbage. I don't believe in it. It's just, why mess with it? Just leave it alone. Come on, what's going to happen? They could take away your voice. They can make everyone you know forget who you are. They can make your arse your face and your face your arse, okay? So just leave it alone. And what do the fairies look like? I don't know. They're supposed to be like humans, but just like smaller, slider, with very like vivid eyes. You mean like jockeys? Yeah, exactly like jockeys. Let's get out of here! I know.
Did you feel that there was a need for an article like this? In other words, are you seeing that there is maybe some confusion from brands and from agencies about what the relationship is between influencers, content creators, brands, agencies, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an ever-evolving industry, so I guess we're always trying to stay on top of it and see what we can do to make processes run more smoothly. A lot of our talent, it's important to them essentially to input into a brief for them to even want to follow through with it. So it can be unfortunate because sometimes when brands or agencies come to us, they have essentially a script. By all means, sometimes that suits certain creators, but most of the guys that we have on our books would like to be more involved in kind of co-creating that brief. So that was kind of where it came from.
And do you feel, in terms of the brief and that communication, that initial communication, is the type of brief that is required in this instance different to a brief that you might put together for a TV campaign or a radio ad or a digital campaign?
Yes, essentially it's, I suppose, less top down and more for a creator to be able to feed into, because, if you're buying a radio ad, that's your creative space to do what you want with it. This is a space on someone else's page that they've spent time building their audience, and their audience have an expectation of the kind of content that they're going to see on their page. So while you can direct them in the avenue you want to go down, you can't have as much creative control over it.
And that's to everyone's benefit, isn't it? Because if the client tries to impose their brand too much on somebody else, for want of a better word, community, that doesn't always have positive outcomes, does it?
Definitely, yeah. It's, authenticity is such a buzzword at the moment, but it's a very important one, and it's one that we have as one of our key pillars within our agency. Is if someone's a vegetarian, they're not going to work with a brand for their sausage Christmas stuffing campaign. It just doesn't make sense. Audiences follow them along their journey. They know those ins and outs of what they do and don't do. So it has to make sense to them. And as a kind of rule of thumb, we say, if you wouldn't promote this brand, if it wasn't an ad, if you wouldn't go to this hotel or you wouldn't drink that drink, then don't take an ad to do so. So essentially it has to be a right fit for the kind of content and the kind of person you are.
Are then people on your roster kind of being selective about what they do and don't do? And is that an important thing from the point of view of their own credibility?
Definitely. And, you know, a lot of them, it is their full-time gig. So obviously it's important that they have a consistent flow of income coming in. But that being said, they're not just going to sell their souls for the sake of that.
Are there other areas that you're seeing that are kind of where things, if they fall down, there are mistakes being made because people maybe don't understand that this is it's a relatively new way of connecting?
I think trust is a really important one as well. So a lot of the time as well, it takes time to build that trust. And that's why those BA pieces are really special, because once you kind of work with someone once, you get to understand their way of working. And so we always say, trust their creators, because they've spent years sometimes building these audiences. When there's the lack of trust and brands want to be too hands-on, it loses that authenticity and appeal. Sometimes a too loose a brief can also be a problem. Like, it is a bit of a sweet spot, essentially. It's like, you know, giving key messaging, any serious watch outs, any legal implications. We need the brand or the agency to sell that brand or that campaign to the creator rather than give them a list of 25 things that they should say.
In terms of then in the business side of it, I'm assuming there isn't really a rate card that says if X has 20,000 or 100,000 followers on Instagram, this is the fee, or it's about a bespoke pricing in each.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, a lot of the time we do get asked for rate cards, and I just feel like that is quite an archaic request because they don't exist within our agency. It really depends on, you know, does someone have to travel to Cork for a shoot? We have to factor all these things in. We do have standard costs with our creators, you know, for a reel, for a story, for a TikTok. How we would kind of make those benchmarks would be, you know, size of audience, but also engagement. So you can have 1 million followers, but if only 1,000 people are watching your stories, that's, you know, not a great engagement rate. So we factor all those things in.
So I think if you were to survey young people in their teens or early 20s, you would find that a high proportion of them, their ideal job would be a content creator.
I've heard that, yeah.
So the first thing is, I assume the assumption is that they think it's not work, that it's just something, you know, it's easily done. And I assume, first of all, that it is work.
It is.
I assume that there's a lot of work. And maybe you could just give us, like, from the point of view of somebody who works with these, what's involved?
Yeah. The appeal of it is no 2 days are going to be the same, and I can understand why that would be very appealing to a lot of people. But at the same time, you really have to hustle. You cannot rest on your laurels in this job. You always have to be putting content out there. And we always say to our creators as well, like, people follow you for a reason. They obviously understand that you're going to put out ads to pay your bills. And I think most of the time, audiences are very happy to support creators and understand that they have to make money from that as well. But they also want to see some organic content, some side of who you are. And, you know, people are a bit nosy. They want to see into behind the veil, into their lives. So the biggest mistake you could make is only posting content when it's monetized or when it's an ad. It has to be that perfect mix of the two.
That was Aoife Smith-Morgan from the Collaborations Agency. My thanks to her on how to get the best out of your creative collaborations. If you've enjoyed the podcast, we really appreciate it if you could follow the podcast. It helps us to get the word out there and spread it to lots of other people who may be interested as well. So if you can do that, that would be great. That's about it. Mixed, edited, recorded, Tinpot Productions. We're back next Friday. Wherever you pick your pods, thank you for listening.